Hello, this is Scotty Reed. I am one of the hosts of New Abolitionist Radio, and during this special broadcast of the program, what you will hear is a conference call that was held today, August 7, 2013, by the GEO Group. And the GEO Group is the second largest private prison enslaver in the United States and possibly in the world, as they do have prisons in South Africa and looking to expand their business. What we were attempting to do was a phone protest, but unfortunately they did not take any calls. I guess, they are only taking calls from people that they had previously identified. But regardless of us not being able to get any of our calls and questions in, we were able to learn a whole lot about the inside, giving you an inside look of how the private prison slavery business is working. And I mean, you will be shocked. So we hope that you will listen to this entire call and pick up on the terminology being used. After the call, you will also hear myself and Max Parthas give you our commentary looking back on the call. And we will further break it down tonight on New Abolitionist Radio at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Q2 2013 GEO Group Incorporated Earnings Conference Call. My name's Alison, and I'll be your operator for today. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. We will conduct a question-and-answer session towards the end of this conference. If at any time during the call you require assistance, please press *0, and an operator will be happy to assist you. As a reminder, this call is being recorded for replay purposes. I'd now like to turn the call over to Mr. Pablo Paz, Vice President of Corporate Relations. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you, operator. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's discussion of the GEO Group's second quarter 2013 earnings results. With us today is George Zolli, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Brian Evans, Chief Financial Officer, and John Hurley, President of GEO Corrections and Detention. This morning we will discuss our second quarter performance and business development activities. We will conclude the call with a question and answer session. This conference call is also being webcast live on our website at www.geogroup.com. Today we will discuss non-GAAP basis information. A reconciliation from non-GAAP basis information to GAAP basis results is included in the press release and supplemental disclosure we issued this morning. Additionally, much of the information we will discuss today, including the answers we give in response to your questions, may include forward-looking statements regarding our beliefs and current expectations with respect to various matters. These forward-looking statements are intended to fall within the safe harbor provisions of the securities laws. Our actual results may differ materially from those in the forward-looking statements as a result of various factors contained in our Securities and Exchange Commission filings, including the Form 10-K, 10-Q, and 8-K reports. With that, please allow me to turn this call over to our Chairman and CEO, George Zolli. George?
Thanks, Pablo, and good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining us as we review our second quarter results and provide an update of our efforts to pursue quality growth opportunities and return value to our shareholders. Our strong quarterly earnings results continue to be driven by sound operational and financial performance from our diversified business units in the U.S. and internationally. During the second quarter, we achieved a number of important milestones. In June, we closed on our previously announced acquisition of the Joe Corley Detention Center in Montgomery County, Texas, for $65 million. The center was previously owned by the county and houses ICE and U.S. Marshals detainees. We managed the center under a contract with the county, and this is one of the best performing management contracts with annual revenues of approximately $27 million. The acquisition of the center has allowed us to secure long-term benefit of this contract and is expected to generate returns on investment consistent with our own facilities. Further, we believe this important acquisition significantly improves our competitive position to pursue expansion opportunities given the ongoing need for federal bed space in this region of the country. Earlier in the quarter, we took important steps to restructure our balance sheet. In April, we amended our $1 billion senior credit facility at favorable rates and more flexible terms. The restructuring of our credit facility was preceded by the March offering of $300 million in senior unsecured notes at a yield of 5 1/8%, a historically low rate for our company. The important steps have given us more flexibility as we continue to pursue accretive opportunities for new organic development projects and potential asset purchases. These opportunities are expected to drive growth for our company as we continue to return value to our shareholders. Today, we announced our third quarter dividend of 50 cents per share, consistent with our prior guidance. As we have expressed to you in the past, our board and our management team remain focused on the careful evaluation of our allocation of capital to enhance shareholder value. We remain committed to increasing our dividend payout in our adjusted funds from operations through the continued organic growth of the company. In line with that commitment, we expect to increase our quarterly dividend payout ratio to approximately 75% of AFFO, or 53 to 55 cents per share in the fourth quarter of this year. Our recently completed refinancing, the potential reactivation of idle facilities, and new organic opportunities will give us the flexibility to return a higher portion of our funds available for distribution to our shareholders. With respect to the outlook for our industry, we continue to be optimistic regarding several new opportunities, and we are currently pursuing. Our most immediate potential catalysts are the prospective reactivation of our current inventory of idle facilities, which total approximately 6,000 beds. Specifically, as it relates to our current idle facilities in inventory, we are currently participating in known public procurements in California, Michigan, and at the federal level. These procurements are expected to have contract awards announced this year and next year, and may result in the reactivation of several of our idle facilities. Further, we are exploring a number of non-public opportunities that relate to both new project development as well as potential asset purchases. We believe that our company is well positioned to benefit from these important opportunities. We also believe that our company has attractive investment characteristics which are underpinned by our robust real estate portfolio of company-owned and leased facilities. Our company profile has evolved over several years, during which time we have developed and financed dozens of new detention and correctional facilities for federal and state government clients. We currently own or lease approximately 70% of our facilities and 60% of our beds worldwide, and approximately 60% of our total revenues are generated by our company-owned and company-leased facilities. Our owned and leased real estate portfolio encompasses approximately 8 million square feet in diversified facilities located on more than 4,000 acres of land across the United States. We have stable and sustainable income through increasingly longer-term contract arrangements. We have a diversified base of investment-grade government customers with multiple individual contract arrangements, with no single customer contract representing more than 5% of our revenues. We have historically enjoyed solid occupancy rates in the mid to high 90s and strong customer retention rates in excess of 90%. Our long-term assets require relatively low levels of maintenance CapEx. As we have discussed historically, our maintenance CapEx requirements of approximately $25 million to $30 million annually are less than half of our annual depreciation expense of $70 million. Now I would like to turn the call over to Brian Evans to review our financial performance and outlook.
Thank you, George. Good morning, everyone. We are very pleased with our second quarter results as well as our outlook for 2013. As disclosed in our press release today, our adjusted funds from operations for the second quarter 2013 increased to 73 cents per share from 64 cents per share last year. On a GAAP basis, we reported second quarter 2013 income from continuing operations of 48 cents per share compared to 34 cents per share a year ago. Our quarterly results include a tax benefit of $8.4 million associated with our recent REIT conversion. This tax benefit is offset by $1 million after tax and one-time REIT conversion-related expenses and $4.4 million after tax associated with the write-off of deferred financing fees in connection with our recent financing activities. Our total revenues for the second quarter 2013 increased to approximately $382 million from $371 million a year ago. Approximately 60% of our revenues are generated by our company-owned and company-leased properties. For the second quarter 2013, we reported net operating income of approximately $102 million. Approximately 70% of our NOI is generated by our company-owned and company-leased properties. Second quarter 2013 results reflect a normalization of approximately 4,000 new beds activated by our U.S. Corrections Division during 2012. These beds added approximately $80 million in fully annualized revenues. Additionally, our Geo-Community Services business unit added normalized revenues during the second quarter as a result of the activation of new day reporting centers, the expansion of one of our residential reentry facilities in Alaska, and the addition of new electronic monitoring contracts during 2012. Moving to our outlook for 2013, we expect our full-year AFFO per share to be in a range of $2.82 to $2.89, or $203 to $208 million. On a GAAP basis, we expect our income from continuing operations for the year to be between $1.65 and $1.70 per share, including the tax benefit in the second quarter, offset by one-time expenses related to our REIT conversion and the write-off of deferred financing fees. We expect our full-year revenues to be in a range of $1.51 billion to $1.53 billion. Our NOI is expected to be in a range of $411 to $419 million, again with approximately 70% of NOI being generated by our company-owned and company-leased properties. Our guidance does not assume the potential reactivation of our idle facilities totaling approximately 6,000 beds or any new projects, both of which would represent significant upside to our financial performance. With respect to our third quarter 2013, we expect revenues to be in a range of $378 million to $383 million. We expect our income from continuing operations for the third quarter to be in a range of 42 to 44 cents per share, and we expect our third quarter 2013 AFFO per share to be in a range of 70 to 73 cents. With respect to the fourth quarter 2013, we expect revenues to be in a range of $378 to $383 million. On a GAAP basis, we expect our income from continuing operations for the fourth quarter to be in a range of 42 to 45 cents per share, and we expect our fourth quarter 2013 AFFO to be in a range of 70 to 73 cents per share. Our guidance for the second half of the year reflects the effect of negative foreign exchange fluctuations in our international business unit as a result of the strengthening of the U.S. dollar, which will result in an impact to our revenues of approximately $10 million for the second half of the year. As George mentioned, during the second quarter, we completed an amendment to our senior credit facility, which is now comprised of a $300 million term loan and a $700 million revolver. As of early August 2013, we had approximately $280 million outstanding and $60 million set aside for letters of credit under the revolver, leaving $350 million in additional capacity. This important milestone has resulted in a more flexible debt structure, which has allowed us to eliminate approximately $25 to $30 million in mandatory annual principal payments, increasing our funds available for distribution from $155 million to $185 million, and giving us additional flexibility to continue to maximize shareholder value. With respect to our other uses of cash, We expect our project and growth CapEx to be approximately $20 million to $30 million in 2013, of which approximately $15 million was spent in the first half of the year. Additionally, during the second quarter, as George discussed, we acquired the Joel Corley Detention Center for $65 million. We believe that this important acquisition is indicative of additional opportunities we may pursue for the purchase or development of state and county assets, and our restructured balance sheet will give us the flexibility to pursue these important opportunities and create value for our shareholders. With that, I will turn the call over to John Hurley for a review of our market opportunities. John?
Thanks, Brian, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to address select publicly known business development opportunities in our key segments, starting with the federal market and the 3 federal government agencies that we serve. We have a long-standing partnership with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the United States Marshals Service, and the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, and we provide cost-effective solutions for them at a number of our facilities across the country. We continue to see meaningful opportunities for us to partner with all 3 of these federal agencies, notwithstanding the various issues with the federal budget, which we believe will have no material negative impact on our business. The Federal Bureau of Prisons continues to face capacity constraints coupled with a growing offender population. ICE and the U.S. Marshals Service continue to consolidate existing populations into larger, more modern facilities, which has driven the need for additional private beds, as evidenced by the activation late last year of our ICE contract in Adelanto, California, and our new contract with the U.S. Marshals Service in Aurora, Colorado. With regard to new business opportunities, the Bureau of Prisons has issued a solicitation for up to 1,600 beds at existing facilities which can be located anywhere in the country. Proposals under this procurement were submitted last September. An award under this solicitation has been delayed pending resolution on the agency's new budget for fiscal year 2013-14. The Bureau of Prisons has also recently issued a new solicitation with 2 requirements. Each requirement is to house approximately 1,565 to 2,000 low-security adult males. One facility must be located in one of the following states: Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or New York. The other proposed facility may be located anywhere in the continental United States. This procurement will include the rebid of our company-owned facility in Pennsylvania, whose contract expires in April 2016, and the rebid of another BOP privately operated facility in Ohio, whose contract expires in May 2015. Proposals for this procurement will be submitted this month, with awards expected in mid-2014. Additionally, the Customs and Border Protection Agency issued a request for a proposal for the provision of secure transportation services for the southwest border of the United States. We expect a contract award to be announced this year. Turning to our state market segment, as states across the country continue to face budgetary pressures, their ability to achieve cost savings becomes an even more important priority, which leads to increased interest in privatization projects. Several states across the country continue to face capacity constraints and inmate population growth. Many of our state clients require additional beds as inmate populations continue to increase and aging, inefficient prisons need to be replaced with new, more cost-efficient facilities. For instance, in the states where we currently operate, the average age of state facilities ranges from approximately 30 to 60 years old. With respect to state solicitations, the state of California has a pending procurement for 1,225 in-state community correctional facility beds. Proposals were submitted in late May with contract awards expected in the near future. We have more than 2,200 community correctional facility beds in inventory in California. Given the recent ruling from the United States Supreme Court denying the state's request for a stay, we expect additional opportunities to partner with CDCR as the state continues to look for cost-efficient bed space in-state and potentially out-of-state. Following the Supreme Court's decision, it has been reported that state officials are considering the transfer of at least 4,000 inmates and potentially several thousand more to private prison facilities both in-state and out-of-state in order to comply with the court's order. In Michigan, the Department of Corrections has a pending RFP for approximately 1,000 in-state beds. Proposals were submitted in late May, with the contract award expected in the third or fourth quarter. In Florida, the Department of Management Services has issued an invitation to negotiate for the competitive rebid of 3 existing private prisons which are not currently operated by GEO. The Moorhaven, Graceville, and Bay facilities total more than 3,800 beds. Turning to our GEO Community Services segment, each of our Community Services divisions continues to pursue several new growth opportunities. Our Reentry Services Division is competing for a number of formal solicitations from the Federal Bureau of Prisons for residential community-based reentry centers across the country. Additionally, we're working with our existing local and state correctional clients to leverage new opportunities in the provision of community-based reentry services in both residential facilities as well as non-residential day reporting centers. Our BI subsidiary continues to market its supervision and electronic monitoring services to local, state, and federal correctional agencies nationwide. In the last year, BI added more than $4 million in annual revenues, and we expect to compete on additional opportunities as correctional agencies across the U.S. increase their use of electronic monitoring technologies to track offenders who have been placed under community supervision. At this time, I'll turn the call back to George for his closing remarks. George?
Thanks, John. In closing, we are very pleased with our second quarter results and the outlook, which continues to be driven by solid operational and financial performance from our core operations in the U.S. and internationally. Our company remains focused on effectively allocating capital to enhance value for our shareholders. We have taken several steps to restructure our balance sheet and attain the flexibility to return a higher portion of our funds available for distribution to our shareholders over time. We are actively participating in a number of procurements that are expected to have contract awards later this year and could result in the reactivation of several of our idle facilities in inventory. Further, we are exploring a number of other growth opportunities for the development of new projects and the potential purchase of assets in our core market segments, similar to the acquisition of the Joe Corley Detention Center. We believe that this important transaction is indicative of other potential opportunities we may pursue for the purchase of existing assets or the development of new assets. We expect that all of these efforts will continue to drive the growth for our company and create value for our shareholders. In recognition of our continued company growth, we expect our fourth quarter dividend to increase to 53 to 55 cents per share, representing a payout ratio of AFFO of approximately 75%. We also believe that our diversified growth and investment strategies have positioned GEO as the leading provider of corrections, detention, and community reentry services through a GEO continuum of care that can deliver performance-based outcomes and significant cost savings for our clients worldwide. As I've expressed to you in the past, we view all these different initiatives to enhance shareholder value as complementary and none pursued to the detriment of the others. This concludes our presentation. We would now like to open the call to your questions.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to ask a question, please press star followed by 1 on your touch-tone telephone. If your question has been answered or you wish to withdraw your question, press star followed by 2. Press star 1 to begin, and please stand by for your first question. Your first question comes from Manav Patnaik of Barclays. Please proceed.
Gentlemen, my first question was just sort of, big picture. Wanted to get your updated thoughts. I guess right now your net debt to EBITDA is about 4.8 times, and putting that in context with, I guess, the ATM program that you had initiated, I think it was last quarter. Just wanted to get your thoughts on, how aggressive you can or would want to be in terms of, 2 things. One, just continued acquisitions, whether that's one-off facilities or, it seems like, your competitor obviously bought a small player, if there are many more of those. And also in terms of, share buybacks, if that's an option.
Well, as I said in our prepared remarks, we are aggressively pursuing other non-public opportunities, which also include the possible purchase of facilities and additional assets. So we think we're well positioned, and by virtue of our financial agreements and capacity to act on those opportunities, and
I think just to supplement that, obviously with the revolver, we think we have significant liquidity there to pursue those growth opportunities. We're comfortable with the leverage level that we're at right now. We obviously have the ATM in place as just an additional source of liquidity if we need it.
Okay, and can you remind us what your, I guess, covenant levels are for the net debt to EBITDA?
575.
575. Okay, cool. And then just to touch on your comments on California again, has, I guess, maybe a little more, if possible, in terms of, has California reached out specifically to you guys in terms of discussing opportunities, or was that comment on potentially looking for 4,000 or more beds more just a public statement?
That was a public statement in addition to the current procurement in which we are participating for the 1,225 beds, community treatment beds.
Okay, fair enough. All right, thanks. I'll get back in the queue.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Toby Sumner of SunTrust. Please proceed.
Thank you. First is just a housekeeping question. The intention to increase the dividend in the fourth quarter, that's something new you're revealing on the call, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And then for the opportunities for new projects and potentially acquisitions of facilities, are those kinds of discussions proceeding at a pace that you would describe as steady, or are they progressing at a more rapid pace now than comparable conversations and discussions 6 months or a year ago?
I think there are more opportunities this year than there ever have been in the past.
Thank you. That was very direct and very helpful. And of the facilities that you have that you could reactivate, are there certain facilities that you feel are kind of the most attractive, in most likely to be reactivated versus the others in your portfolio?
Well, I think it's fair to say that our California in-state facilities would be the most attractive to a potential client like California. I would begin with those. And then we do have some other large-scale facilities, like our 2,000-bed Hinton, Oklahoma facility, or 1,750-bed Michigan facility, in particular, that are well placed and sized for large-scale needs by a state or federal client.
Thank you. And my last question relates to California. Where would the next actions need to take place for the state to effectively contract for incremental in-state or even out-of-state beds? Should our eyes be focused on the legislature in terms of appropriating funding?
Well, I think that's certainly part of it, that there will be a need for additional funds, and then another part of it is by what means. Is it the traditional procurement process or on some expedited basis? Because it's, I guess, my interpretation that the 3 federal judge panel gave the department significant leeway in relief from certain legal restrictions in moving forward in increasing capacity. So it remains to be seen as to how they approach that, but I think they will need more money, and they will need, very possibly, some kind of procurement approach to reactivating additional capacity. But in answer to one of the previous questions, although we haven't been contacted per se directly, we have obviously marketed to the state and given them additional information as to the availability of our different facilities in state and out of state. They're well aware of our capacity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Just to remind you, if you do wish to ask a question, please press star and 1 on your telephone keypad. Our next question, however, comes from Kevin McVeigh of Macquarie. Please proceed.
Great, thank you. Hey, I wonder if you could comment. It seems like we've kind of seen the sequester, and it looks like there's been minimal impact, if any, on the business. Just any thoughts on that at first?
You're correct. There's been minimal impact, no material impact. We've seen kind of periodic blips, ups and downs, but nothing sustained, which we're thankful for.
And then, not to belabor kind of California, but, obviously it's been a state that is a tremendous opportunity, but also comes with its fair share of headaches. Given kind of what the judges come down with, do you see any more staying power in terms of the way you're going to negotiate those contracts where there may not be as much volatility, where if Jerry Brown come in and say, all right, we're going to not fund these beds this year, and then, the funding comes in. I guess what I'm saying is, are you better positioned to maybe get a little more length out of those contracts as they're negotiating now, just given the, mandate that it doesn't seem like it's got too much flexibility by the 12/31 deadline?
I think the answer is yes for 2 reasons. One, there's been more clarity as to what the demands are by the 3-judge federal panel and what objectives have to be met by the state. And then 2, I think the decentralization of the low-level security prisoners has kind of played out, and we've seen that the counties have reached their capacity in being able to absorb low-level prisoners, and so that we've seen that. And I think the state has seen that and heard back from the counties, in effect, that they're pretty much at their limits. So the only 2 possible solutions, as reported in the papers, have been it's either a release of prisoners or adding additional capacity, primarily through private beds.
And then just not to get too precise with the timing, but I would imagine those awards would have to come out relatively soon, just given the fact that you've got to transport them and to scale them down from whatever facilities are currently at into an alternative would take some time. Is that the right way to think about it?
Well, each year or each period of time, the state has different objectives it must meet, and the next milestone, I think, is the end of this year, that they have to achieve between 9,000 and 10,000 additional beds of capacity or release of a similar number of prisoners. So I think they're going to have to move fairly quickly. On
Understood.
This timetable, then next year has an additional timetable to it.
And can you remind us, just not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but into 14, is there a certain number in terms of, I know this year it's between 9,000 and 10,000, what next year would look like?
I regret to say
I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. Nice job.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Chuck Rapp of Insight Investments. Please proceed.
Hi. I see that in the second quarter your adjusted EBITDA was down about $2 million from last year's second quarter. I know you lost the Alaska inmates, but I would have thought that would have been more than offset by Phase 2 of Adelanto and Aurora, Colorado. Can you explain why adjusted EBITDA declined?
Well, I think we had probably two main impacts to it that are outside the pro forma adjustments. One is the conversion to a REIT, and just there's more ongoing or recurring overhead costs related to the REIT compliance and so forth. And then the other piece is there's probably about $1 million or so in impact in the first half of the year related to the strengthening of the U.S. dollar and the follow-on impact on FX rates.
Okay. In the conversion to a REIT, how much did that increase annual overhead by?
By $3 to $5 million.
Okay, so those two things, along with losing Alaska, more than offset Adelanto and Aurora.
And with regards to Adelanto, the new expansion opened in the fourth quarter, and I would say in the first part of this year it's been normalizing. We would expect in the second half of the year to have more consistent, regular run rate margin or profitability from that project. But the contract was still stepping up its population levels. We had full staffing that we were incurring all the expense for. So that facility wasn't generating normalized profits during the first half of this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Kevin Campbell of Avondale Partners. Please proceed.
Hi, this is Clara on for Kevin. Could you just give us your thoughts maybe on the RFP that was recently issued in McAllen, Texas?
Well, I think it's a request for qualifications for approximately a 1,000-bed facility to be developed jointly with McAllen, Texas.
Okay. All right, and then also could you give us some insight on your interest maybe in community corrections acquisitions and also the size of that market and how fragmented it is?
I'm not sure the size of the market. I would guess it's $1 to $2 billion, and there's a number of different players in the market. I can't name them all, but I think we are the largest.
There's a combination, like George said, a number of smaller. Obviously, you're familiar with some of the larger ones. There's some not-for-profits that are involved in it, so it's a pretty fragmented, diverse market.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to turn the call over to George Doley for closing remarks.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us on this call, and we look forward to addressing you on the fourth quarter call. Thank you. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your participation in today's conference. This concludes the presentation. You may now disconnect, and good day.
This is Scotty Reed, Black Talk Media Project, New Abolitionist Radio, and we just got through broadcasting the call from the GEO Group, one of the second largest, I think, global private prison enslavers in the world. And so we had people on the call, but their calls were not being taken. I'm going to try to call Max, who is the co-host of New Abolitionist Radio. Our regularly scheduled show comes on at 8 tonight. But, I mean, I don't know how long you were listening to that call, but it was just like they were discussing trading in cattle. I mean, it was just really disgusting to me. So let me see if I can get Max on the line. Max, we are streaming live right now during this special broadcast of New Abolitionist Radio, and of course we'll break it down, break it down tonight for our listeners. But apparently, you know, I guess they had identified the people that they normally speak to, because you said as you was trying to, you know, get your questions in, that you didn't get any kind of response.
Yes, and I listed our business as PDA. Prismatic Dreams is a company that I'm part of, so I listed it as PDA just to give an acronym and make them, feel like it was a company. And they never called on me, man. But I'm still in a state of shock, to be honest with you, Scotty. I'm kind of in a state of shock, bro. I can't believe. It's hard to believe when you're confronted with face-to-face that this type of soulless evil exists, where they discuss selling people across borders, and the cops are so far ahead of them that they can't keep up. They have to build more and more prisons, and California is their superstar.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't ask until like the last possible minute to try to get in a question, but some of the questions, and I think one of those persons who obviously is an investor in prison slavery, he asked the question of how it was going. They kept bringing up California because, you know, the Supreme Court has ordered that they release, I think, up to 10,000 prisoners, and I think they were kind of talking about that. And
yes,
yeah. What did you pick up from that?
What I was getting is that was the point I was just saying a moment ago. They were saying that the Supreme Court ruling has allowed them to either free these prisoners or build jails quickly enough for them to transfer them, because they like to transfer the prisoners from one state to another to help keep that 90% filled. They mentioned that in the conversation. So they're saying, look, we need to get our investors to get this money in here right now, because now's the time. We can buy at least a 4,000-bed facility, and they mentioned that one, and a 6,000-bed facility, and we could take those prisoners that are about to be released and put them there, and each one of them will be worth money to us.
I mean, just the terminology and just how cold they were sounding in their statements. And again, I'm going to break down the call by the person speaking. I guess we could also break down the callers who did get questions in. But, I mean, I got the impression like they were discussing cattle, retaining and acquiring new customers and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, my God, man.
Yeah, that's the key words that they use for human beings, customers. Now, what the customers are buying is beyond me, but I'm taking it, they use that terminology to express the way the relationship between the taxpayer and the prisoner is. See, we finance these prisoners. The taxpayers finance them. So indirectly, the taxpayer is the customer, and the prisoner is the asset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also, I think that from listening to this call, and these calls were made public, so I'm not worried about them coming after us. And even if they did come after us, I would welcome the publicity that it would bring. I'll go on trial, and hopefully, some people will set me free through jury nullification.
Well,
but I'm not worried about it, because they make all of these calls public. And they also post the archives to their website, which I have the link to. And I tell you, they were exposing a lot of stuff, Max. I mean, like California reaching out to them, in states. And then, like, I was doing some other research, and, they're based in Florida, and they give a lot of money to Marco Rubio, the senator, and it was talking about how much money they give to the Republican Party in that state. And so I'm like, wow, I wish I really could have got my questions in, because I wanted to ask them questions like, well, how do you see your future business model being impacted by all of these states moving to legalize medicinal cannabis as well as recreational use of cannabis? Because 53%, and I looked at some data last night, Max, 53% of all drug arrests since 1997 have all been for cannabis.
I think for us, Scotty Reed, this today was kind of like our Snowden coming out. I don't think they ever wanted something like this public. And they said a lot of things in there that really are testimony that could be used as evidence in a court. For instance, when they insisted that the politicians on Capitol Hill are very aware. They made that very clear. Not that they're wondering or they don't know. They're very aware of their positions with the prison industrial complex, and in particular that group. So that's testimony right there. Like, who is very aware? And I bet you if we look deeper behind these lines and we start seeing the connections, you'll know exactly who's very aware. And this thing goes up so far, dude. They're talking about a revolution. You know, in America, people talk about being revolutionary. This is your reason to start one. It is this.
And then also I heard a mention of ATMs. How are they making money off of ATMs? Do they mean like the ATMs that, you know, when a family member comes in and they want to leave money in a canteen or something? Well, we have our own ATMs and we're going to collect fees.
ATMs into the prison industrial complex facilities. They also have factories there. You know that, right?
Right.
So why not have ATMs? So they're making money on all of that. And if you look even deeper, you'll see that there's other investors and other companies that are involved, as you well know, that make a variety of things that they supply to the prison system. They have conventions every year where these companies get together. So they may not be by name directly associated, but they definitely profit off the prison system supplying all kinds of things, like AT&T.
Well, also, the callers that they were taking, and I imagine, because see, we blasted this out and a number of people told me that they were going to call in and try to confront these people, but I guess, you know, they were screening the calls, and I guess they identified those who they felt comfortable taking calls from, because they were mentioning their company names, you know. So, I mean, that's some more research. Possibly we can get those, go back on the call when we break down the calls, get those company names, and then get the contact information for those companies, and then we call them up on the phone and confront them. What do you think?
You know, I think that would be a good idea. And, you know, I'm going to keep it real. You know me. I want to point something out to the people that are listening. If you heard those voices on there and you're, you know, a person that usually can tell what color somebody is by their voice, although I know I confuse people sometimes, you'll notice that it seemed to me, and it might probably seem to you, Scotty, that those was all white men. All white men talking and a white woman. I don't think I heard anybody in there that sounded like they might have been minority or Hispanic or anything like that.
Well, the first person did.
Clear.
The first person was sounded like he was either a Pakistani or Indian descent.
Yeah, I just can't imagine a brother or sister calling in on there and saying and looking for investments for their people in slavery. I just can't. It would mess my whole mind up if I saw some stuff like that, dude. I'm telling you.
But like we pointed out, and you've often pointed out, though, many of us are unknowingly invested in the enslavement of human beings and participating in human trafficking through our 401ks.
Yes, we are. And not only that, we all have family members involved in that system one way or another, and we often throw out little phrases to protect them, like there are some good cops, and, you know, my uncle's a prison guard, and he's been doing great. And they call the children in the juvie centers wounded children. Yeah, you wounded them. That's what it is. You wounded them. And, you know, we want our pensions and we want our 401ks. We try to invest it in prison industrial complex, but we don't want to remove ourselves from being a part of that system. So as long as you're in it, it's going to exist. It's a collection. It's a collective thing. It's an entity, you know, and we're all playing roles. The taxpayer is the customer, people. Guess what you are? The taxpayer.
Mm-hmm. And then also think about, you know, as we keep hearing the news about all of these school closings in Chicago and other parts of Illinois and Philly, in Philly, and I'm sure it's happening in other places as well that we're just not hearing about it. I actually got contacted by somebody through our Facebook page talking about the closing of one of their schools because it had mold, black mold in it. Okay, and just not up to code. Now, you think about what these people were saying, you know, about their opportunities to, you know, procure new contracts and new facilities and stuff like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if these schools that's being closed were not procured by them and converted into, you know, prison plantations. But I mean, on a taxpayer tip, just thinking about all the schools that's being closed, all the teachers that's being laid off. Here in North Carolina, they just passed a law, and this state is now totally controlled by Republicans. But I'm not trying to make this a partisan thing, because I don't see Democrats trying to stop any of this. But here in North Carolina, you know, they have eliminated teachers' tenure. In my county alone, they eliminated over 150 teachers' assistants positions because they couldn't afford it. But yet, you know, all of these prisons keep getting built. I mean, I think their plan for us is clear and evident.
We heard them say that a large portion of their profit margin comes from real estate. 60 to 70% of their profit just comes from owning the facilities or leasing the facilities. So that tells you right there. And it's also, I've been saying that this is opportunities for small businessmen, and that's how they're looking at it as well. Small businesses are coming up with that. There's a place here in Columbia, South Carolina, of course, where the number one industry in the state is the prison industry, but there's a place here that was formerly a school with no more than room for a dozen cells, and they're converting the school into a prison. It's a small business prison. Imagine that, when those start popping up like KFCs. With every few blocks, you don't only see a pawn shop and a rent-to-own and a title loans, but there's a prison with 12 people in it, and somebody making $200,000 a year for keeping it. It's ridiculous. It's out of control.
And you know, let's not make the mistake of thinking that all of these people that they are enslaving are a bunch of rapists, murderers, and child molesters. I think they even said on the call, you know, these are low-level defenders. Some more information. What low-level means is drug addicts. Okay. And again, I had did some research last night, and I came across this graph that was given breaking down the drug war arrests going all the way back to 1997, I believe, and I copied that graph and I'll put it out later. But what was interesting to me was not only were half the arrests, and it was always somewhere around half, like either 47%, 48%, some years it was above 50%. Half of the drug arrests are for marijuana, okay, or cannabis. I hate using that racist term, marijuana, but cannabis. But then it broke it down further. How many of the arrests were for drug dealing or what they call manufacturing and selling, okay, versus how many were arrested just for possession, which would indicate that you're a user, okay? Do you know that looking at this graph showed me that they were focusing on the addicts and not the dealers? I mean, it was never, the percentages of the arrests for manufacturing and dealing was never above 5% of the arrests. And up in the 80s and the 90s, they were targeting addicts. What does that tell me? That tells me that you are not interested in stopping drugs from being sold. You're not interested in stopping drugs from getting out on these streets. And you're only interested in targeting the person who is self-medicating for whatever reason. And no, we do not advocate that anybody use drugs, but at the same time, you know, we don't advocate anybody use tobacco, but we ain't locking up people for smoking cigarettes. You see where I'm going with this? And so it's just clear to me that they are interested in keeping the drugs on the street and targeting users.
This is kind of like what the Willie Lynch letter represents. What they do is they create self-organizing and self-replicating systems that maintain themselves with a constant supply of income provided by these soulless corporations. So they don't want the dealers. They want a steady supply of addicts, apparently, because there'll always be addicts, and the dealers keep creating addicts. So why go after the dealers when you're going to keep getting all these bodies coming from the addicts? And this is a generational thing. So daddy and the son and the grandson have all been addicted to either alcohol or some one of these drugs out there, you know, whatever it may be that they put into our communities. They like creating self-sustaining systems. And if you look around the prison industrial complex and how it operates, you'll see that's how much of it is. It grows on its own based on how they set it up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I wonder why they cut the call short, man. Maybe I don't know. You know, I really don't know. I just don't understand why they were not taking other calls. Because me and you were on there. Other people indicated to me that they were calling in. And I don't understand why they did not take our calls. And the call was scheduled to go for an hour.
It's possible that the fact that they had such a number of callers indicated to them something different was going on. And
you mean more than usual?
Yes. So where they might have had 15, they had 50. They're like, oh my God, well, let's just get Bill and Jerry and John because we know them, and then brought those people in.
And I'm also hoping that nobody tipped them off, because we tried to keep the information close to the vest, meaning that, we didn't make the company's name public that we were targeting. We were just, you had to request it privately, and we would send you the information. But last night, I went ahead and I made a graphic using the CEOs. You heard him on the call, Zoli. And I'm just wondering if somebody tipped them off or what, man. I don't know, because, the graphic I put up, man, quite a few people shared it. So I'm just wondering if somebody tipped them off. But it could be, like you said, they got more calls than usual, people that had not been on a call before, and so they were, like, not going to take any chances of, being embarrassed.
In the scheme of things, Scotty, you got to understand what you just got here. We constantly talk about this side of slavery all over, and we're not the only ones. People hear this conversation a lot, and it's growing. But I don't think we ever hear that side of the conversation, especially when they speak it in such terms that you can literally call it evidence. So you've got something special here. I got to give it up to you for this, man. There's parts of this that's going to get out far and wide, and this could lead to something bigger than you might even imagine, bro.
Well, that's why we, started the group, Move to Abolish 21st Century Slavery. Other people have long been involved in this fight, but before, we didn't have the technology and the capabilities that we have now to get more information out. But also, even though we didn't get our calls in, I think that we, gained some valuable intelligence to speak in terms of warfare, and this is warfare. So we gathered some valuable intelligence, and like I said, we will break down the calls later tonight on New Abolitionist Radio. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We're going to break it down. We're also going to bring in Legacy Leonard, which I'm kind of disappointed she wasn't here today with this, but we should have set it up. I mean, we're doing a transition period, so it's kind of our fault. But tonight we'll have Legacy Leonard on the line, too, and we'll send her a link of this so she can kind of catch up to date of what's been going on with it, man. I look forward to her perspective from it. I also would like to say that the slavers who just got busted today and listening, there was questions I wanted to ask you. So just for the record, I'm going to ask anyway. If you... as members of the human species, how can you sleep at night knowing this is legalized slavery decimating the black and minority and poor communities of our country? At what point do we start calling it human trafficking, genocide, and treason? How long do you think it will last before chained prisoners become freed slaves joined by informed citizens seeking righteous vengeance? What do you tell your children you do for a living to match the title of slaver? Do you believe the world will continue to sit back and allow you to steal, store, exploit, and sell human beings, American citizens? I think not. You heard my questions here today. Rewind them, biatches. I'm sorry, bro. I'm very emotional about this thing. Listen in tonight, 8 to 9 p.m., New Abolitionist Radio on Black Talk Radio Network. Black Talk Radio Network.com, dude. You got too many words in there. We gotta narrow that down to an acronym and a .com, bro. We're gonna make it happen. You know I'm stupid in one ear and can't hear out the other.
All right.
Anyway, bro.
Well, thanks for participating in, and I'll go ahead and get this posted. But like Max just said, if you want to call in tonight and discuss this with us, New Abolitionist Radio, as Max stated, comes on every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. So please tune in and bring a friend. Peace and blessings to all.
Peace and blessings to all.